NHL DFS, FanDuel, and DraftKings lineup advice for tonight's main slate. It is November 12th. I'm Brian Jester, co-founder here at Occupy Fantasy. Going to do a quick 10-minute video. You know how it works. Looking at tonight's NHL fantasy hockey slate from a DFS perspective. Take a look at some goalies that are in some good spots, teams that are projected to score a bunch of goals, some values, and then some quick strategy on how we would approach tonight's slate, both in cash games and low-risk contests, but also in high-risk contests, whether that's GPPs or leagues or satellites or whatever you may be playing. What you see on screen here is our Occupy model. It's the NHL version of our trusty model. Updates live. It ranks every player on the slate at each position, and then it also ranks each stack on the slate as well. And this will update throughout the day as betting odds change, as goalies are announced or removed, as skating lines are changed after morning skate comes in, and of course as betting odds change throughout the day. So what I like to do, as always, when starting out my NHL DFS research for the day is looking at the goalie tab of our Occupy Fantasy model and seeing which goalies are projected to do well, and then immediately after looking at the highest projected implied totals in the betting markets. So we'll see here today. Looking at goalies, if I can scroll down here, we'll see, first and foremost, there are no huge favorites today, no minus 200s or more. We'll see four guys here grouped at the top, all with very similar expected win percentages based on the money lines in the betting markets, minus 175 down to minus 160, and that's really just a difference in 2% in expected win percentage. So we have Price, Rask, Binnington, and Gibson. So again, first thought, these would be guys I'm looking for in low-risk contests. None of them stand out that much. Price does have the highest OF index, which is our proprietary metric that takes into account more than 50 different metrics. And we'll look throughout the day how the opposing team total moves, how the money line moves for him. And now for goalies, the OF index takes into account two main things. One is expected win percentage, because on FanDuel it's so important to get that 12-point win bonus. But then also, especially on DraftKings, expected saves. And we do a lot of different calculations. A lot of different things go into expected saves for us. But if you got a goalie that can rack up a ton of shots on goal and save them, it's huge upside for your lineup. So Price, Rask, Binnington, Gibson, none immediately stand out to me. We'll have to see how this changes throughout the course of the day, and maybe whichever goalie we use depends on if we're stacking with some of their skaters to add upside. All right, let's sort by team totals and see who Vegas and the betting markets believe have the best chance of scoring goals tonight. Should be no surprise, the Boston Bruins. They're powerful line one. Check-in is the top-ranked implied goal total today at 3.88. Right behind them, Montreal. Anaheim, perhaps a surprising inclusion in the top three. Rare to see them. Pittsburgh, San Jose, and the Blues. About six teams here in that top tier. Really, Boston and Montreal in their own tier. I guess you can include Anaheim too. What's interesting about this Anaheim game is you look at their opposing team total, or look at the team total move. And again, this is really early in the day. We're recording this at 10:30 Eastern in the morning. Most line moves don't happen until early afternoon. But if you look, Detroit and Anaheim, plus 0.34 for Anaheim. And if you go down to Detroit, plus 0.16. This game total has gone up a half goal from 5.5 to 6. So that's pretty big, especially this early in the day. I'm wondering if we'll see a goalie change later that reflects why this is happening. All right, so we see teams that are in good spots. Let's go over to our even strength stack dashboard to take a look at how our model ranks each line on the slate. Remember, there's 54 different lines tonight, lines 1 through 3 that you could potentially stack. Again, no surprise, Boston line 1. But what's really interesting about tonight, even though they have the highest implied goal total, again, they're exorbitant prices on both sites. 23.6 on DraftKings, 25.2 on FanDuel. It's really tough to fit all three of them in. Bergeron, Pastrnak, Marchand. Really tough. And I guess one way you could do that potentially I would have to look to see how this fits. We talked about Anaheim having the third highest implied goal total, and they're super cheap, 14.3 on DraftKings, 13.5 on FanDuel. So maybe that's the way you go in low risk contests if you want to try to fit in those 3 Boston skaters. I guess you could do it in high risk too, because it's such a large slate that I doubt ownership will be concentrated in one spot. I suggest playing around with that to see what you can realistically fit in with Boston. Now tonight is the Super Crossbar on FanDuel. I know a lot of our members at least have been targeting that contest for a couple of weeks now through satellites, and many of you have multiple tickets into that contest. I believe it's a $15,000 first prize, $7 entry, and that's a pretty big payday opportunity for most. So in those bigger GPPs, we love to look for underrated stacks. And to me, right off the bat, Detroit is really, really intriguing. One, they never ranked this highly ever in the model. But look, they're line 1 with that game total increase. I know they only have a 2.38 implied total right now, but they're relatively cheap. 17.7 on DraftKings, 18.4 on FanDuel. We expect low ownership, obviously. And there are 3 guys, actually. So they're line 1. Let's see here. I'm just pulling it up on my side. Yeah, they're line 1. Bertuzzi, Mantha, Larkin. All 3 rank really highly in the metrics we value. Shots on goal in recent games, expected goals, blocked shots even. So high danger chances. All these correlate with fantasy success in future games, and all 3 on Detroit's line 1 check the boxes in those areas. So Detroit's line 1 looks like a pretty good high risk stack here to me, especially at their cheap price. You can fit in some expensive skaters or an expensive goalie to go with it. Other team that stands out is Pittsburgh, and you see their line 2. And again, in our model, line 1 and line 2, it could be interchangeable based on if it's 1 or 2 depending on the team. Pittsburgh, their line 2, I think is actually their line 1. We'll see today. But the reason Pittsburgh's line 2, Pittsburgh's line 1 ranks so highly and they're attractive is because look at their prices. Rarely do we see Pittsburgh this affordable, and it's because of some injuries they have. So Sidney Crosby did not make the road trip. He's out for at least 2 games. Hornquist is on IR. Chris Letang, the defenseman, has been out. He continues to be out. So with some shuffling of the lines, we actually get some really good values. So Pittsburgh's line 2, here's an interesting way to look at it. If you go to the wingers tab, Pittsburgh, we have Jake Guentzel and Galchenyuk, both who rank highly in those metrics that we value. And then Jared McCann, yesterday during their practice, moved up to their line, and he's classified as a winger, so a potential 3-winger lineup here. Super attractive on DraftKings with the utility spot. FanDuel if you're getting creative. But McCann, Guentzel, Galchenyuk, a nice little line 2 value stack. I mean, Galchenyuk especially at 49 and 48 on each site respectively. You could also go line 1 with Malkin, Rust, and Simon. Those 3 rank highly in those metrics. A lot of Pittsburgh skaters rank highly in the metrics we value tonight. And opening as a top 4 team total, likely lower ownership. Pittsburgh's line 2 is another, or Pittsburgh's top 2 lines is where I would be looking in high risk contests tonight. Even in low risk, you can fit a lot of these guys. I mean, there's some major values. Galchenyuk especially looks like a glaring value this early in the morning. All right, we're approaching the 10-minute mark. Let's see if we can find any other information that could help us out tonight. San Jose, they have a top 3 team total or top 4 team total. Their line 1 is in play. Montreal is interesting because I believe that it was announced that Columbus is starting their backup goalie tonight. And Montreal has a top 2 team total as a result. But what makes it tricky is Montreal's line 1 and line 2 and 3 rank in the top 14. So it could be difficult to pinpoint which line ends up with most of the scoring tonight. Montreal's line 1 ranks a little bit higher than the other 2. But seeing these other 2 this highly is somewhat concerning, just based on the fact that goals could be spread out, which is not something we want in NHL DFS. Let's see here. Edmonton is another team that is expensive. McDavid and Draisaitl on the same line, and getting them at 3% ownership is pretty nice. They have a low implied total, 2.63 goals. But again, tonight, this matchup specifically with, let's take a look. I just want to double check who they play with. San Jose. A lot of high danger chances projected for Edmonton tonight. And as a result, guys like Dreiss, McDavid, huge upside. So I would look to them as well. If you have multiple tickets, you want to combine some of these guys in your entries. Now, if you don't have any tickets to the crossbar tonight, that doesn't mean you should go play it, just because it is a GPP, top-heavy payouts. Tonight, I think it's more of a high-risk night to me. Maybe use a little bit less of your bankroll. If you feel comfortable with a low-risk lineup that you can build around maybe Boston, maybe Pittsburgh, some of these other teams, get in a goalie in there, you might be all right. I wouldn't spend too much allocation, though. I really think, though, with Detroit popping, with Pittsburgh popping, Anaheim even at their cheap price tags, Montreal if you can get it right, San Jose, Edmonton, some really good high-risk stacks tonight around the skaters. So I think I would mostly be playing, especially on FanDuel, 100-player leagues, satellites, DraftKings. No 100-player leagues available. We'll reach out to them, see if we can get that changed. But definitely a good high-risk night, I think. All right. We are surprisingly surpassed the 10-minute mark. But reminder, the Occupy model on OccupyFantasy.com, NHL version, can and will change throughout the day. I encourage you to go back and check this, especially in the afternoon. Access for as little as $2 a week. Remember, it ranks every player on the slate, ranks every stack on the slate, goalies, betting markets. Everything is updated as news comes in. So I encourage you to go check that out to get the best advice you can get for tonight's NHL DFS slate. Be sure to follow us on Twitter at OccupyFantasy. Follow me at BrianJesterFF. If you haven't already, definitely subscribe to our YouTube channel. You can click that red subscribe button down there. Anytime we post a new video, you'll be notified. If you like this video, thumbs up. Always appreciate it. And if you have comments about how we can improve this video, or if you have questions about tonight's slate, comment below and I'll get back to them personally before the slate locks at 7 p.m. Eastern. All right, I think that'll do it. Brian Jester here at Occupy Fantasy. We appreciate you listening, and good luck tonight.